we are also quite curious about your position in terms of our colleagues. So we have junior doctor colleagues who are currently going through that industrial action. We have our consultant colleagues. We have our SAS grades. We have our registrars. Do you have any particular plans for those doctors in terms of any sort of issues that come to the mind, in terms of pension tax relief, in terms of any sort of exams, in terms of any sort of portfolio changes, in terms of with the issue of the dearth of training places, making it more straightforward to Caesar, to have to attain a CCT or Caesar for people who can't get in terms of one of those training posts? Do you have any sort of options or plans to
Sure.
try and improve that?
So there's a lot of people you talk about. I think one of the main things to say is this. Right now in psychiatry, we have 100% recruitment into all our posts, which is absolutely fabulous. It's brilliant. It's great. But we have more consultant vacancies than ever before. We also, amazingly, even though we've got 100% recruitment, we now have an administrator whose job it is to make sure that there are junior doctors available for the rota, because we don't have enough junior doctors to cover. So something's gone wrong. We might be recruiting people, but they're clearly not staying. And so, retention is a massive issue. We touched on some of the issues. For consultants, it's not about pay. We know that, but it is about not having admin support, not having an adequate office space. And a lot of consultants aren't saying, I want my own space. I mean, ideally you would have that, but when I don't want my own big office, with sea views. Not saying that. What they're saying is, I want a space that I can call my own, where I can have confidential conversations with people, where I'll be able to get on and peruse notes, write reports, etc., etc. They want to be able to have equipment that works, basic equipment that works. And also the jobs that we do they're complex and they're hard and they're busy. And there has to be some room for headspace so that people don't burn out, actually. And so one of the things that I'm a really big advocate of is what I call, this is for consultants and mid-career SAS doctors, is a thing called portfolio roles. So you'll have your main clinical role, but you might also be a medical educator. And that will be not simply an add-on that you don't get paid for, but it'll be very much part of your job plan. Or you might be someone who wants to do policy, or you want to do a bit of research, and giving people the opportunity to, because you do get to a stage where you become so proficient at your clinical work and you feel, I have things that I can, because I can do that more quickly now. I've got other things I can offer now that I've got so much more experience. So I'm not, and that's actually something that happened, that I did myself, and it was happened by accident. And when it happened, I kind of started doing this other role. I felt like it was certainly on top of my full-time job, and I felt like I had to I couldn't really talk about it very much because I was doing all this extra work, and there was the worry that, oh, okay, does that mean you're not going to be doing your main job? Actually, that wasn't it at all. In fact, it was actually enhancing my main job. And I think building that into people's work, their usual work patterns, will make people's, especially when you get to after about 5 or 7 years of being a consultant, you sort of feel like I've got more to offer now, and I know so much more. Portfolio roles are the way forward. Same for SAS doctors, portfolio roles, because people are SAS doctors for many years. When it comes to, you talked about Caesar. So Caesar is something that, is often offered to SAS doctors, and it said this could be the solution to our workforce problems. There's absolutely no way that Caesar is going to be the solution to our workforce problems, because Caesar, I don't know if you've ever seen the forms, it's like 1,000 pages. It takes years to complete the Caesar forms. And it's funny because there was an argument about SAS doctors recently, and people said, why don't they just do the exam? Some of us, it's really easy to, I'm the kind of person who, prefers to cram and then get the exam done. I'm an exam person. I've looked at the Caesar. If I had to do Caesar, I would never, if that was my roots becoming a consultant, I don't think I'd be a consultant, because I just wouldn't ever get around to filling in the forms. the CSER process has to be, I mean, it just has to be completely streamlined, because we can't, you've got these people who are ipso facto consultants. You know, they've been working for many years, they're highly experienced, they just, you know, they're often running the wards. They're 25% of our workforce in psychiatry, the SAS doctors. They're often running the wards. They're really, you know, they're brilliant, and yet they're often taking the kind of responsibilities that consultants do, but they don't have this thing. And for some of people, they're quite happy actually as SAS doctors. They don't want to you know, they don't want to change. Other people might want to be consultants, but the nature of the CSER process, it's so cumbersome, it puts them off. So I would want to very much streamline that. So that's something you'd have to work with the GMC on, actually. But the college has that's something that college can make a difference to, for sure. And with junior doctors, well, we've talked a lot about junior doctors and what junior doctors need. We need to be able to offer junior doctors, you know, guaranteed training places in the field that they want to train in. And I mean, I think about addiction psychiatry. It's very hard to get a training place in addiction psychiatry, certainly in England. It's not so much in Scotland, but certainly in England. I would like to see an increase in addiction specialists. I would like to see an increase in medical psychotherapists, actually. There's been a real reduction in that. Obviously, with medical psychotherapists, not everyone can, you know, it's very expensive to do to have psychiatrists as doing all the psychotherapy, but psychiatrists can oversee it and can oversee the training of other of junior staff, psychiatrists, psychologists, nurses, so that there's everyone in the workforce has got you know, some psychotherapeutic skills. It's absolutely key. It's crucial to what we do. And other staff that you talked about, I think that was everyone, wasn't it? I think
yes. Well, that less than full-time staff are colleagues.
Oh yeah, less than full-time staff. I mean, one of the main difficulties I think that less than full-time staff have is that they're not treated as though they're proper staff. You know, or a classic one is that you're less than full-time, paid less than full-time, but essentially treated as though you're full-time. So you have to, you know, you end up doing loads and loads of work as though you're full-time, but you don't get, you know, access to all the training, especially, you know, especially when people are trained, don't get access to all the training. You may not get access to all the kind of CPD, the continuing professional development. And rather worryingly, you know, the majority of people who work less than full-time are women, and you can see there's a significant gender pay gap. And that doesn't need to happen, actually. That doesn't need to happen, but it's concerning that it does. People less than full-time, less likely to get what are now called, well, clinical excellence awards. What were they called? I'm trying to think. They've changed the name of them anyway. Clinical impact awards. They're less likely to be offered more senior roles. So less, and that's all rather unfair. And I think that's because there's still a culture that if someone's working less than full time, then they're not doing as much of a job as someone who's working full time. And that's simply unfair, actually. And we've done some work. This is in my role as presidential lead for race and equality and then joint leader of Raj Mohan. We've done some work with our women's special interest group at the college. And we've come up with a framework to support employers to think about the, you know, particularly women who are working with them around the kind of gender pay gap, and that particularly impacts people who are working, you know, less than full time.
Absolutely, that is something which is vital in terms of looking after all our colleagues and making sure that their concerns are assuaged and that they have the means to do that job, that they're not worrying about the very basics to their own safety, their own health, their own position.